it's a curious thing, this business of being happy. Everyone wants it. Every book, every teacher, every advertisement seems to promise it. Do this, buy that, become someone, and you'll be happy. But have you ever noticed that the more you chase it, the further it seems to slip away? It acts as though happiness is this shy little creature that runs and hides the moment you start looking for it. You see, most people treat happiness like a goal, a trophy waiting at the end of the race. And so they run faster and faster, piling up achievements, collecting experiences, chasing after the next bright thing. But here's the strange part. When they finally pause, when the noise dies down, they find that the happiness they were chasing was never out there at all. It was sitting quietly in the very place they started, patiently waiting for them to stop running. Alan Watts once said, "The meaning of life is just to be alive." But that's the one thing we refuse to do. We're so busy trying to become happy that we've forgotten how to simply be. Think about it. Have you ever sat on a quiet evening, doing absolutely nothing, no phone, no plans, no agenda, and suddenly felt that soft, inexplicable peace? That's it. That's happiness before your mind begins to measure it. But our minds don't trust silence. They want reasons, guarantees, progress. So we invent the story that happiness lives somewhere in the future, once we've earned enough, improved enough, achieved enough. And then we chase the future like a mirage, forgetting that the horizon always moves as we do. The great cosmic joke is this. The very act of seeking happiness is what keeps it away, because the moment you start looking for it, you've already declared that it isn't here. And the universe, ever so obedient, says, "As you wish." So we run faster. We set new goals. We promise ourselves that the next thing will finally bring peace. The next job, the next lover, the next version of ourselves. And yet, like sand through our fingers, happiness slips away. It's not that life denies us happiness. It's that we're looking for it in the wrong direction, out there, when it's always been in here. You don't need to earn happiness any more than you need to earn the warmth of the sun. It's already shining. You've just forgotten to stop running long enough to feel it. So perhaps the question isn't, how can I be happy? But rather, what happens if I stop trying? Because maybe happiness isn't something you chase. Maybe it's something that catches you, once you finally stand still. There's a subtle trick the mind plays, and most of us never see it. It whispers, "You'll be happy when you finish your studies, when you find the right person, when you make more money, move to a better city, fix what's wrong with you." And so begins the lifelong game of almost. Almost there, almost enough, almost happy. But almost is a cruel illusion, because it always moves. You arrive at one finish line, and the next appears before you waving its flag, promising that this time it will be different. And we believe it, again and again. Society even rewards this chase. It calls it ambition, progress, success. But underneath, something hollow remains. You reach the top of one mountain only to find that the view looks strangely familiar. The same longing, the same unease, just from a higher altitude. Alan Watts once compared life to music. He said that just as a song isn't meant to reach the final note as quickly as possible, life isn't meant to be rushed to its end. You dance, not to arrive, but to dance. Yet most of us live as though the goal is to finish the song, to get to the end of happiness, as if it were a project to complete. We measure our worth by the milestones we pass, forgetting that milestones are markers of distance, not fulfillment. We've turned living into a task, a self-improvement project that never quite concludes. But you see, happiness cannot be achieved in the same way you achieve a promotion or a degree. Because happiness is not the result of effort. It's what remains when effort stops. The mind says, work harder, meditate longer, manifest better, as if happiness were hiding behind the next door of personal development. But true peace begins when you see through that trick, when you realize there's nothing to get to. The truth is, there's no finish line because you were never running a race. You've only been circling the same quiet center, too distracted by motion to notice the stillness at the heart of it. Imagine chasing your own shadow, running faster and faster, believing that speed is the answer. Then, one day you stop. You turn around, and there it is waiting for you. Not ahead but beside you. Always. That's happiness. Not something to conquer, but something that's been patiently following you all along. The real awakening is not in getting what you want, but in seeing the wanting itself. The constant craving to become something else. Someone more perfect, more successful, more enlightened. And in that moment of recognition, something extraordinary happens. You laugh because you realize the joke, that what you were seeking was never missing. Happiness isn't ahead of you, it's underneath the search itself. You see, the mind is a restless thing. It doesn't walk. It runs. It doesn't listen. It plans what to say next. And even in moments of stillness, it's secretly asking, what comes after this? The chasing mind cannot bear silence. It feeds on motion, on the idea that it's moving towards something. But here's the irony. That movement is exactly what keeps you from arriving. We've been conditioned to believe that rest is laziness, that stillness is stagnation. From childhood, we were told to do more, be more, get somewhere. But no one ever stopped to ask, where is this somewhere? We keep building ladders without checking if they lean against the right wall. And so, the mind becomes a machine, endlessly producing thoughts, goals, fears, and stories about who we should become. It's like being trapped in a cinema, mistaking the flickering images on the screen for real life. You forget you're the one watching the movie. But when awakening begins, there's a strange reversal. You start to notice the projector itself, the constant hum of thought. You realize that every anxiety, every desire, every plan is part of the same film reel looping endlessly. Me, me, me. You don't need to fight the mind. Fighting thought with thought is just another thought. You simply begin to observe, like sitting by a river watching the current flow. You stop trying to dam it up or redirect it, you just notice. And in that noticing, something miraculous happens. The current slows. Not because you forced it, but because you stopped identifying with it. The great secret is this. The mind only runs when it believes it's in control. When you stop believing that, the mind has no one left to impress. Anxiety, you see, is just energy without direction. The heartbeat of a mind that doesn't trust the present moment to take care of itself. But life has never needed your management. The sun doesn't rise because you scheduled it. The flowers don't bloom because you made a plan. So what happens if you stop managing for just a moment? At first, it's terrifying. You feel naked, unguarded, exposed. The mind protests. If I stop thinking, who will protect me? Who will guide me? But then, slowly, something softer begins to emerge. A quiet presence, like dawn after a long night. And you realize, it was never your thinking that kept you safe. It was life itself. The breath that continues without your command. The heart that beats even when you're asleep. The intelligence that holds galaxies together is the same intelligence that moves you. You don't have to figure out how to live. You are life. And once that sinks in, the chasing mind loses its power. It still runs, but you no longer chase after it. You let it tire itself out like a child running in circles. Then, in the silence that follows, you find something far greater than happiness here. You find home. You know, there's a peculiar kind of peace that arrives only when you stop trying to make life make sense. Not because it suddenly does, but because you stop demanding that it should. We humans have this endless obsession with control. We want guarantees that our plans will succeed, that our relationships will last, that the story we're telling ourselves will end happily. But the universe has never once promised us such things. Life, in its mysterious wisdom, gives us movement, not maps. It gives us moments, not manuals. And when you finally see this, when you stop wrestling with the river and simply allow it to carry you, you realize the water was never against you. It was you all along, resisting the current. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means giving in to the intelligence that breathes galaxies into being, that paints sunsets without permission, that orchestrates every heartbeat and breeze without asking for your opinion. When you let go, life doesn't fall apart. It falls into place. But of course, the mind hates this. It thrives on what-ifs and should-haves. It cannot trust what it cannot predict, so it clings to people, to plans, to beliefs. It's terrified of the unknown, because in the unknown, the mind loses its throne. Yet that's exactly where freedom lives, in the vast, quiet space beyond control. You see, control is born of fear. Surrender is born of understanding. And the moment you stop trying to control, you begin to understand. It's like watching a storm. You can't stop the rain, but you can stop running from it. You stand still and you realize the thunder was never threatening you. It was reminding you of power. The rain wasn't punishing you. It was cleansing you. When you let go, you begin to notice a subtle harmony, how everything is already unfolding as it must, the missed train that led to a new encounter, the heartbreak that carved space for a deeper love, the failure that stripped away false ambitions. Every loss, every twist, every detour was never against you. It was you, unfolding, evolving, awakening. But letting go doesn't happen all at once. It's not a button you press. It's a daily softening, a slow unwinding of all the ways you've tried to grip life too tightly. You start by letting go of one small thing, an expectation, a regret, a need for validation. And the world doesn't end. In fact, it feels a little lighter. Then you let go a little more. And suddenly you begin to sense something extraordinary beneath the chaos. A rhythm, a grace, a quiet intelligence guiding it all. That's when it dawns on you. You were never really in control, and thank God for that. Because the one who was trying to control life was the smallest, most frightened part of you. The deeper part, the still observing awareness, never needed control. It was never in danger. So, you stop trying to steer the river. You trust it. You float. And for the first time in a long time, you realize that life doesn't need your struggle, only your surrender. The greatest trick the mind ever played was convincing you that you are a separate someone, a fixed identity, a me that must be protected, improved, and proven, endlessly. From the moment you could speak, you were given a name, a history, a set of labels to wear like clothing. Student, son, daughter, friend, failure, success. And over time you began to believe those clothes were your skin. But what happens when the story changes? When the labels no longer fit? Most people panic, because their sense of who they are begins to unravel. Yet that unraveling isn't a crisis. It's a homecoming. The ego, the self you think you are, is like a mask worn for so long that you forgot there's a face beneath it. And this mask is exhausting to maintain. It constantly whispers, be liked, be better. Don't let them see you fail. It builds walls of comparison, fear, and pretense. And every time you strengthen those walls, you cut yourself off from the living truth of the moment. You see, the self isn't a solid thing. It's a process. A story told again and again until you mistake repetition for reality. You are not the story. You are the storyteller. But the storyteller has fallen asleep inside their own tale. You've become hypnotized by your own narration, trapped inside a fiction called me. This is why chasing happiness never works, because you, the one doing the chasing, is part of the illusion. It's like a shadow trying to catch the light. The more you pursue the perfect self, the enlightened self, the successful self, the healed self, the deeper you sink into the illusion of separation. Alan Watts once said, trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. You can't find the self because the seeker is the sought. When you begin to see this, something astonishing happens. The whole drama softens. You laugh, not out of mockery, but out of relief. You realize that the one who was striving so hard to become somebody was never real to begin with. And in that laughter, a space opens. The walls of me begin to crumble. Without the heavy armor of identity, life feels lighter, more immediate. You stop acting like the main character and start feeling like the vast stage itself. the space where every character comes and goes. People often fear that losing the self means becoming nothing. But it's the opposite. When the illusion fades, what's left is everything. You become the wind moving through the trees, the silence between words, the awareness watching it all. You don't disappear. You dissolve into what's always been here. And that, my friend, is the moment the chase ends. Because there's no longer anyone left to chase. There's an odd kind of grace that begins to bloom when you finally stop trying to be somebody. At first it feels like loss, like you've stepped off the edge of a familiar world. The ambitions that once drove you lose their flavor. The trophies and titles that once mattered begin to feel strangely hollow. You start to wonder, if I'm not the name, not the story, not this bundle of memories and desires, then what am I? That question doesn't lead you to an answer. It leads you to silence. And that silence is not empty. It's alive. It hums quietly beneath everything, waiting for you to notice. When the somebody you thought you were dissolves, the space that remains is vast, gentle, and unburdened. You no longer wake up every morning rehearsing your role in the play of life. You no longer need to prove, perform, or persuade. You simply are. Most people mistake this state for apathy. They think if you stop identifying with the self, you'll stop caring. But the opposite happens. When there's no you to defend, love pours through unobstructed. You begin to care in a purer way, without agenda, without need, without calculation. Imagine standing by the ocean and realizing you are not separate from it. The waves rise and fall, but none of them claim to be the wave that matters. They appear, they dance, they dissolve, and through all of it, the ocean remains utterly at peace. This is what it means to be nobody, to live without clinging, to let life flow through you without needing to make it yours. There's a quiet revolution that takes place when this happens. You no longer move through the world as a fragile identity hoping to be validated. You move as the world itself. You are the breeze that passes through conversation, the pause before laughter, the gentle awareness that sees but does not judge. And the irony is, when you stop trying to be someone, people feel more drawn to you, because what they sense is real presence. You're no longer hidden behind the noise of self-consciousness. You're open, transparent. You've become a mirror in which others glimpse their own freedom. This is why sages throughout history have smiled so easily. They know the great cosmic joke, that all our struggles to become somebody were only ever the dream of the nobody we already are. To be nobody is not to vanish, it's to be limitless. Because when the boundaries of me dissolve, everything shines through. The sky, the laughter, the heartbreak, all of it belongs, all of it is holy. In this space, even the simplest things shimmer with sacredness. The sound of rain, the way light moves across a wall, the rhythm of your own breath. Each becomes a reminder that you are never apart from life. You are always the stillness watching it unfold. When you begin to live from that quiet, spacious place where the self has loosened its grip, something extraordinary happens. The world itself begins to shimmer differently. Ordinary moments, the ones you used to rush through without a second thought, suddenly reveal their hidden depth. A stranger's smile, the hum of distant traffic, even the way sunlight spills across a wooden floor. Everything becomes alive, intimate, immediate. It's as though life has been waiting, patiently, for you to finally see it. Before awakening, you moved through the world half dreaming, seeing only the surface of things. You labeled everything automatically, tree, car, person, problem, plan, and in doing so you missed the living mystery pulsing beneath it all. But now, the labels fall away. You look at a tree, and you don't see tree. You see this miraculous being, drawing sunlight into form, breathing with the sky. You see yourself in it, not metaphorically, but literally. For the same life that moves the sap through its veins is the life that beats within your chest. And so compassion arises, not as a virtue to be practiced, but as a natural response to seeing clearly. You look at another human being and recognize the same awareness peering out from different eyes. You no longer need to fix them or judge them. You simply meet them as yourself in another form. The arguments that once seemed so important begin to dissolve. You realize you can to really win against anyone because there is no one to defeat. The moment you hurt another, you've only deepened your own illusion of separation. And the moment you offer kindness, you've remembered what you truly are. A movement of love, momentarily taking human shape. Even your pain changes. You no longer resist it with the same ferocity. When sadness comes, you let it come. When joy visits, you let it pass. You start to see that both are waves on the same ocean, beautiful transient expressions of something infinite beneath. And the funny thing is, from the outside, nothing may appear to have changed. You still go to work. You still pay your bills. You still forget where you left your keys. But inside, everything has shifted. You move through the same world, yet it feels weightless. The edges between you and it blur until the distinction stops making sense. You catch yourself smiling at nothing in particular. You pause mid-conversation just to feel the silence between words. You find joy in moments so small that the old you would have overlooked them completely. This is the gentle revolution of awakening, not escaping the world, but rediscovering it. You begin to live life as though it's art, as though every detail matters simply because it is. And that is the secret the great teachers were always trying to tell us. Enlightenment isn't about becoming something special. It is about falling in love with the ordinary again and again, until there's nothing left that isn't sacred. And then, one quiet day, not with trumpets or fireworks, but with the gentlest of sighs, you realize that there's nothing left to seek. The chase has ended, not because you've caught something, but because you've seen there was never anything missing to begin with. The whole pursuit of enlightenment, of becoming spiritual, of trying to be pure or wise or good enough, it all dissolves like mist in morning light. You begin to laugh softly at first, then fully, because the joke is so divine, so perfectly cosmic. You were never lost. You were never separate. The one who searched for truth was the very thing truth was searching through. It was all one great game of hide and seek, and consciousness was both the hider and the seeker, pretending not to know itself for the sheer joy of remembering again. This is what surrender truly means, not giving up but giving in. You stop swimming against the current of life and discover you were the river all along. You stop trying to control reality and realize there is nothing outside of you to control. Everything, the laughter, the heartbreak, the confusion, the peace, all that was never happening to you. It was happening as you. And with that realization comes a peace so vast it feels almost impossible to contain. Not a blissful escape from the world, but a tender embrace of it. The pain of others becomes your own pain. The joy of a bird's song becomes your own joy. You look at the stars and feel the ancient pulse of your own being shining back. You begin to live in what Alan Watts once called the eternal now, the place where life actually happens. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, not in some distant heaven or mystical state, but here, in the texture of this moment. The feeling of your breath, the sound of wind, the silence behind it all. And from that space, life begins to live you. You speak, but it feels as if the words are spoken through you. You move, but the movement feels guided by something far deeper than thought. You love not as an act of will, but as an unavoidable truth. As natural as light radiating from the sun. There's no longer a you trying to do life correctly. There's just life. Dancing, unfolding, expressing itself through countless forms. Through laughter and tears. Through beginnings and endings. Through chaos and calm. And when you finally stop resisting the flow, you discover the real secret. Freedom isn't about changing the world. It is about seeing that the world has always been free. So perhaps the final lesson is the simplest one. Don't strive to awaken. Don't chase after perfection. Just be still enough to notice. Notice the breath moving in and out. Notice the space between thoughts. Notice the life that's quietly holding you, even when you think you're holding it. Because in that noticing, you will find what the mystics and poets have always pointed to, that you are not a visitor in this universe. You are the universe, awake and aware, pretending for a little while to be human. And when that truth finally lands, not in your mind but in your bones, you'll see that there was never a journey at all. Just this eternal unfolding. Just this infinite now. Just this. So let go. Stop striving. And fall, gracefully, into what you already are. Because the miracle was never in reaching somewhere else. It was in realizing you were home the entire time.